So, Hare Krishna, Vrinda Kishori. Hare Krishna, everybody. I just want to thank Vrinda for joining me today. I'm so excited that she's finally agreed to come. I've been begging her for over a year to do this video with me, and I know you've been very, very nervous to put yourself, up like this and to speak in front of people on the subject matter, by the way, of discussing Gita and Bhagavatam with our children. And I know she's been very, very nervous to share her experiences with everyone. I'm going to let you explain why you've been nervous, Vrinda.
Okay. Thank you for giving me a chance to offer this disclaimer. So my main concern actually with doing this is that usually we like to hear from people that have kind of been there, done that, and shown what worked, what didn't work. And at the moment I'm actually going through the process, so it's not really that I've come out the other end and my children have come out the other end. It's something that we're doing presently, and there's a chance that my children will not choose Krishna consciousness when they get the opportunity to choose Krishna consciousness when they're older. So I, giving this talk and then my children not actually taking up the process is quite daunting and scary. So just to warn you, I'm still working on sharing Krishna consciousness with my family and with others around me. So if you just just take what I say with a pinch of salt, I guess.
There was another reason too, isn't it? You were saying to me how you've seen videos of adult survivors or of people who've done homeschooling. Yeah. Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Okay. So there have been, I read about some children that their parents had gone around talking about how amazing this curriculum for home education had been. That they'd done a curriculum for home education, and so their family represented the best kind of homeschooling family, and so the kids always had to pretend to be this perfect family when actually there was disconnection happening. And so when they were older, there was a lot of trauma that they had to deal with. And so I was like, I don't want to put my kids through this by talking about this discussion, but I think if I've done this disclaimer, I think I feel a bit safer. Okay.
So those of you who don't know Vrinda Kishori, you won't know how things turn out, but those of you who do, she's certainly not here because she wants to present herself as being an expert or her children as being anything but what they are, young children. And but she's come because I've really been asking her. There are other mothers who've been trying to share the discussions with their children. But I and Vrinda met when Vrinda was pregnant, in her early stages of her pregnancy with her first child, and we began doing the discussions, the two of us and some other ladies, almost on a daily basis at one point, wasn't it? Well, at least a few times a week, I can't remember. And she's gone on to share it, so she's been sharing it longer with her children than other mums who are now beginning to do that. And I just wanted her to share with us her experiences, good and bad, to give other mums courage and to help us realize that it's not all going to be, roses and, there will be difficulties for all of us. But I wanted her to share both her difficulties and her successes to give the rest of us courage to persevere and try to do our best. So, Vrinda, I just wanted to ask you, how did you begin to share it with your children, with your first child initially? What was your approach to sharing it with your first child?
Okay, thank you. So we started, I think, with my first child, with both of my children, they've kind of grown up seeing that this is what we do, because I was fortunate to have met Chintamani Prabhu from, earlier on. So when when the oldest was just a newborn and very, very young, I'd be coming to the discussions, and They were actually every day.
Oh, they were. Oh.
Monday to Friday at 1 o'clock in Radha Shakti Mataji's room. And it was so nice, especially for a mother that's just had a baby, and it's like, you know, you're kind of feeling a bit weird about the whole change and everything. But, you know, that was my place to go, you know, and they were all so welcoming. And so my daughter's literally been brought up seeing me get together with other ladies and discussing, and so I was discussing with these lovely devotees at the manor, and then as she got a little bit older and you know, she was making a little bit more noise, and I remember you suggested that we do a mothers group, and so we started doing a mothers group at my house, and there were a lot of other mothers that had just had babies as well, and so the babies would come and play together, or kind of play with their toys next to each other, or whatever they do, while we discussed. So she's constantly seen that, and then, you know, obviously later on as we're discussing as a family, she's seen that as well.
I just want to catch it.
Yeah.
When you say discussing as a family, you mean with your husband?
Yes. Sorry.
So
we'll talk about that.
She saw you discussing with your husband.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. She saw me discussing with my husband, discussing with my friends, and it was just a normal thing for her. I remember even with her friends, they could barely talk. They were like, I remember her and one of her friends, they, you know, after our discussion, they were with our friends, with the other mothers, they sat on the sofa and they got a Gita each, and they said, let's do Gushan. And they were like, I can't read, they can't even talk properly, but they were like, you know, trying, they were really trying to do this, because this is what they thought happens when, you know, when we get together. So that was one thing that she saw me doing this. Another thing is that she'd like to imitate me, but also in our daily life we were you know, whenever, because one of the principles of discussion is to kind of reflect back, to understand to hear and to understand what the other person is saying. So I found that while she was growing up, even when she'd just say, you know, little words, you know, just like, you know, flower, or, you know, bird, or whatever, you know, I'd say, oh, you're saying that you can see a flower? Oh, you're saying you can see a bird? And so any little word that she'd say, you know, I'd reflect that back, which a lot of mothers do anyway, I think. But I think that kind of helped reinforce and kind of show what you
model.
know, that's the word, model the way that our discussion protocols go. So that's kind of how we she was introduced to it, or that's how she saw it.
I think you modeled other things too, because yes, you're right, when, you know, really many mothers will reflect back, but you'd reflect back other of our discussion protocols. You'd say things like, would you like to say more? And have I understood you properly? You began using these just in your everyday life with her, right? Would you like to say more on that? Yeah,
so that's what I said. so if she'd you know, she'd say something, I'd say, oh, you're saying this, would you like to say more? Yeah. And then she'd say, especially if she's upset, you know, if they're really upset, oh, you're feeling upset because of this? Yeah. And would you like to say more? Yeah. And I feel like this, when she could speak a little bit more. Oh, and you're feeling like this and this? Yeah. Would you like to say more? Oh, well, I feel like, yeah. And then, you know, eventually she said, you understood me perfectly.
That's another of our discussion protocols, isn't it?
Yeah, because that's how we'd discuss in, you know, with using these protocols. We'd say, oh, thank you, you understood me perfectly. So she started saying that too.
So I just think this is so interesting, Rindu. At no point did you sit down and tell her, you have to discuss Gita, and you have to say this, and you have to say that. She just saw it happening, and as children will do, they'll model whatever we do. If we're watching TV, they'll watch TV. If we smoke, they smoke. At least they'll want to play smoke, you know. But if we're discussing, they'll want to play discuss. If that's what they see mom and dad doing, mom and friends, whoever her caretaker is doing with other people. So that was a key strategy you had, just letting her see you do it. And your second key strategy again wasn't to sit her down and tell her she had to discuss, but just in everyday life, modeling to her all the little niceties, all the different little protocols or useful tips, we now call them, that we apply in the discussions that make us each other feel heard and respected. You began using with her, and then she just began imitating and speaking to you in the same way. Yeah. Did she begin using, like, did she ever understand you in the same way in everyday life? Did she just imitate any of those things? Would you like to say more and things? Because I remember you telling me when she was very little young that she did do that. I don't know if you have any memories of that now.
It's been a long time. I can't remember.
I won't hold you to that.
I can't remember.
So we've talked a little bit about how you began to share it. Did you want to say more on that, or should we move on to the next point?
I'm happy to move on.
Okay, so I know you have 2 children, and I was wondering if you found it as easy to share the discussions with your second child as you did with the first child.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. For any of you that have more than one child, I think you'll all agree with me that they are vastly different. Very different. And so I also found that with my own children. So with the first, and I also think it's the family dynamics as well. So with the first, I had a lot more time for her. It was just me and her, and we spent a lot of time talking, and I could reflect back to her. With the second child, she was an addition to something we already had, with my first child. So whilst I was still trying to give attention to the first child, the youngest was still too small to talk to, and I feel that I didn't give her as much attention as I did with the first one, and she also had a different nature. So she was she was crazy. She was crazy.
Nice crazy.
Very nice crazy. And it's they've all got their pros and cons. So so things were different, and I found that actually I wasn't consciously putting effort into connecting with her. So I only found this out a bit later on, that she's always playing up and not listening to me. And my first child would listen to everything I said. We'd have conversations. We were respectful to each other. What is happening? I thought I was the perfect mum until my second child came, and then and then I realised that it's all really down to connection, and I felt that I didn't put time into connecting, and I wasn't present. Even though we were together all the time, I wasn't consciously present. I don't know if any of you have kind of felt that you're with your child, and but you're not really with them. Your mind is somewhere else. You're thinking about something else. So I think the turning point was when I decided to, when I saw this and thought something needs to change. What did I do differently? What am I doing differently now compared to what I was doing with the first child? And one of the main points was I was listening attentively to her, and like you were saying, it was I was respecting her a bit more, so I tried to, sometimes if she'd say something before, it would be like, oh, okay, wait, I need to do other things, or you're saying that, and you kind of agreeing to what they're saying but not really listening. Fobbing them off. And so I see why I was a bit scared doing this.
We're all human.
Yes.
I reassured Vrinda that showing humanity is a good thing, because we don't want to set any of us up as being perfect, because then it's not going to help anyone else. And anyway, we're not perfect, so we won't help ourselves. But I hope if you can see the humanity in everyone's situation, and that will give you courage. That will give you courage that you're also human, you have your foibles, but we can. It can still work according to your circumstance and your ability, and it can hopefully do good if we if we don't force the children, but we encourage. And I think some of the ways you've encouraged have been really worth sharing. So I'm going to let you carry on. Thank you.
Thank you. She's great when she speaks. Sorry. She's going to want me to edit that out.
Yeah, edit that out.
Okay, so with the youngest one, I just kind of realised that I need to be more conscious and more present. So whenever she spoke, I'd try and... So even now, I'm still trying to just kind of stop and listen to what she's saying, and not just listen to what she's saying because I want her to later on be able to discuss, but really listen and value and understand what she's saying. So if she's saying, I don't like this, I don't want to eat this or something, usually I'd be like, well, you have to eat it. You're not eating it. Oh my God. Okay. Like now we've got to waste it, blah, 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 but now, if she says she doesn't want to eat it, eat something, I'd say, oh, you really don't want to eat it, you don't like it, or what don't you like about it? And she just says, I don't like it gets stuck in my throat or something like that. It's like, oh, okay. And do you know why these are good? And, do you think these are good for you or bad for you? And let's try eating the colours of the rainbow, and what colour is this? And we'd try and speak more about what she was kind of what she wanted to talk about, rather than me just kind of ignoring her. And usually it's just a call for attention. And when we actually have these conversations, she actually wants to do things that I've been asking her to do over and over and over and over again, because all of it was just she just wants to be noticed, and I'm noticing that now. And so now I'm really trying to be more conscious and more present, and I'm really finding that it's a game changer. Honestly, it's that really fixes things, and I think this is kind of helping towards our discussions as well. It will, So I think the first bit is connection, even outside of discussions, before we start discussing, to have that connection and build on that connection. Yeah,
that's a really nice point, that connection. And connection doesn't come by intimidating or talking down or punishing, but by respecting, helping the person feel understood and respected and validated. And then once we can make that, and using some of the discussion protocols can help that, because something like 60% of the discussions is learning to listen empathically, not just with our words, but with our body language, with our facial expressions, with our tone of voice. And so really helping the other person feel that they're being valued. So I think that does help create connection. Vrinda, one thing I wanted to ask about your first child that I forgot to ask, and I'd just like to take the conversation back a little bit, if I may, is that you spoke a lot about how you introduced her outside of discussions. She saw you discussing and she'd want to imitate it, and then how you would use many of the what we used to call protocols, now call useful tips, same thing, in your everyday life, with her reflecting back, saying, would you like to say more? Have I understood you properly? Things like that. But how did you get her from that to actually sitting down with you and doing the Gita? And, I know that you have mentioned to me that your husband played a role in that. So I'd just like you to pick up on that a bit and say it in your own words. Okay.
So how did we start discussing Gita with my oldest? So we, I discussed with my friends, and also with my husband, because Chintamani Prabhu had shown a verse, actually the purport of 13:8-12 in the Gita, where Srila Prabhupada talks about the four things that we must do to have a happy family life. So one of those four things, so there's deity worship, having prasadam, kirtan, and discussing. Those are four things, so discussing books like the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So we then we really tried to start discussing, my husband and I, and so then she started seeing that this is something, this is something we do it with our friends, we do it with our family, it's a day-to-day thing. And so then when she saw that, she wanted to start taking part. So the I don't know if I'm meant to mention it now or later, but she discussed she wanted to take part, but that was when she was older. But before that, we were discussing pictures. So from the Gita, we'd kids love looking at pictures. So I think this could even happen from a much younger age. So with my younger daughter, we discuss pictures. So you just open the book. They love looking at pictures. You just ask them, what do you see, and what can you see? And like if they're really small, they could say horse, or or a man, or or eyes, or garland, or and you can reflect that back, and that's what I was doing with my oldest, and now with the youngest one.
I remember. Sorry, I remember that actually, because I remember being at your house sometimes when you were doing that. I think probably with the oldest child, and I was really taken back because she used to use the front of the Gita. I think that was your oldest child's favorite picture. Even if we used to try to go into the Gita, she'd always come back to that front cover with Arjuna and Krishna sitting on the chariot and in the midst of the two armies. And I remember when she would point out to the horses and she'd call them elephants or something. She said, I see, or it might have been your youngest child, I see elephants. It wasn't a horse. She wouldn't say horse. She'd say another animal. And I was really impressed how you never corrected her, never said, no, that's not a horse. I mean, that's not an elephant, that's a horse. Because with time, she'll come to know that. But you never made her feel you're wrong. And that's a really important part of our discussion protocols. We don't try to interrupt and say to the other person, you're wrong. We'll just share our own understanding later. But you continue to reflect back what she said very respectfully. Then you say, oh, yes, so you see 4 horses, or you see, 4 elephants, yeah. And then eventually, probably the 100th time you discussed that picture, because in the beginning she didn't like you to do your understandings, did she? Yeah. It was all her understanding. Yeah. But after around 100 times, you once said, can I do my understanding? And he said, I see from a different light. And I remember the first time your light was different from your oldest daughter's. I remember that led to a bit of a meltdown for your oldest daughter. She was like, oh, Mum, how did you deal with that? Do you remember? I remember because I was always really fascinated with what was going on.
You have a good memory.
I love these, little things you share with me.
Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting it all now. But I just remember, that she was very upset when when I had a different understanding. But I think because she, the first child is generally a people pleaser, and she wanted to be right. She wanted to do things right, and she felt that because I had a different understanding, that my understanding was right and hers was wrong. And I have constantly tried to remind her, explain that don't worry, you've got a different understanding, and and for a long time, like she's been thinking that anytime I had a different understanding, she'd be a bit disheartened. But actually, I've got to say now, it's just clicked, and so it's taken a while. Like every time she changes her understanding afterwards, but now it's clicked. And I think because now she joins in with the ladies' discussion. Oh my gosh, she really she's much more refined now with her discussions, and she owns her understanding now. She's very confident with her understanding, and she's and then she's happy to also understand mine if it's different. So it's I think it just takes time, and also for them to see you, not just see you in discussions with other people, but to involve them as well with the discussions with other people,
if they want to be.
If they obviously,
to the degree they want to be.
Yes, yeah. And you guys are very, very kind with that. Actually, you're very, very good. Yeah.
I think for any moms or dads who are thinking of introducing this, a key thing is never force, never force. If you want to put your child off something for life, force them and shame them about that particular issue. And for life, they won't be able to do that. But it's always encourage and give opportunities and model, encourage and give opportunities. And I remember the very first time she had a different opinion to you, a different understanding for yours. It was quite thinking for you. For her, it was quite traumatic. It's like, I'm wrong. And I remember at the time you really went over, really constantly, it's okay to have different lights. It's okay to see things differently. Yeah. We're allowed to see things. That's good, you know. Yeah. So, you know, if your child experiences any trauma over anything, lots of reassurance, lots of validation, not shaming, not correcting, not that's wrong, you know, but encouraging, validating, you know, and not forcing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely not forcing. Yeah.
So about your second child, we're going back to the second child. So you were explaining that you found that connection has to be made because your second child, both nature is different and nurture, that you had a lot less time for her, lot less focused time for her, and that was making her play up a lot. And you realized just very recently that if you want her to stop playing up and become more kind of submissive and amenable to in any area of her life, not just discussions, you need to give her some more focused attention. Yeah. So you've been really using the protocols of the discussions with her, not in a Gita discussion, but just, you know, focusing your body language, your facial tones, your voice tone, facial expressions, and your language, really trying to focus on her to give her that sense of feeling respected and heard. And you felt that this is gradually helping her.
Yeah.
So that's a little recap about your oldest second child. Have you began introducing Gita discussions to her, and how is that going? I know that you felt really nervous because it's not 100% there with her. She's not yet a lover of the Gita discussions like the oldest child. But how is that going? What's your challenges and what's your successes, if any? You know, do you want to share anything on that with us?
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So she's. We are discussing pictures at the moment, and when I say discussing pictures, it's literally when she wants to discuss pictures. So it's not regularly, it's not every day, and it's however long she wants to go on for. So, you know, she might want to do just one understanding and then that's it. She wants to close the book, or she wants to go on and on and on and on, and we will carry on going on and on and on. So, you know, I just, you know, I can maybe try and enforce other areas, but in terms of discussing the Gita, I just want positive emotional attachment to the Bhagavad Gita. So, and I found that with the first child, I think we pretty much did this as well. We just discussed the pictures, and eventually now she discuss it. We do a family discussion with me, my oldest child, and my husband, and so it all works out. So I think the main thing at first is just to, you know, start fanning it, and so I'm just doing that with the youngest, and yeah, that's quite nice. Yeah.
I'm so glad you shared that. I just want to kind of like highlight some of the things you said. She discusses with both children when they were first starting. The youngest child is still starting. She discusses pictures when the child wants, for as long as the child wants. Vrinda's not doing the talking. The child is, and Vrinda's just reflecting back. Yeah. How did you introduce with the oldest one you beginning to do some understandings? How naturally did that come, or did you have to force that? How do you envisage that happening with the second child? Because the second child right now is just them talking and you understanding for as long as they want. So how did the transition happen, at least with the first one, because it hasn't happened for the second one yet?
Sorry, I meant to say that she understands me as well.
Who, the second one?
The second one,
oh,
yeah,
really?
Yeah. So I think it started off with me just understanding, and when they feel that they've had sufficient understandings, then sometimes I can say, like, can I give my understanding? And then she'll be like, yeah, what's your understanding? And then I'll say, I'll say, what I can see, and then she'll say, and then I'll say, could you understand me as well? And she'll say, yeah, you're saying this. I'm like, yeah, you understood me perfectly. And then she starts saying that as well. You understood me perfectly, So I think, like you were saying before, that we've just kept. Just keep understanding until, and then sometimes we can say, can I understand? And sometimes, no, I have more to say. Okay, would you like to say more? Would you like to say more? Would you like to say more? And then I'll ask, and then my understanding would be, I'd give just a short understanding, and if they ask if I want to say more, I don't really say so much more, because I don't want it to be too much on me, so become hard for them. So just I guess it's you just kind of follow your instincts and just see how ready they are, and if they don't want to understand you, it's fine, it'll come, it really will come.
I'm really glad you mentioned that too, that when it comes to them being understood, you will go on and on for as long as they need to. But when they eventually agree to let you, you to say something, and they have to understand you, you don't keep going. You just keep it really short. And I should imagine it's just to give them that sense of success, that you succeeded. You did good. And another point you brought up earlier, you said in other areas you may enforce things, but when it comes to the Gita discussions, it's really free flow, because you want them to only have positive emotional, anything positive emotional memories attached to Gita discussions. So you don't force anything with the Gita discussions. I think those are really good advices to give. So, is there anything else you want to say about how you shared this with your children? Has your husband played a role? You did tell me recently that you came home and found your husband discussing Gita with the youngest child. One, So tell me a little bit about your husband's role, because I do think husbands play a really important role, even though they're at work all day. That if they're not at all supportive, it's really hard for the mother to do it all alone. There has to be some, even if it's just moral support from the husband. Can you speak a little bit about, to the degree your husband is able to support this initiative?
I think for us, I think once the kids are on board, then the husband is on board. So with us, it's just that by Krishna's grace, at the moment, my oldest daughter loves discussions, and particularly she loves discussing with us as a family. So me, my husband and her, and with the youngest one pottering around or nearby. So she really likes that part of the day. And so, it's kind of hard for him to refuse. And
not that he would.
If you're tired at the end of the day. But he, I think he does encourage discussions, and he does take part as well. And I think because he knows that the kids really like to see us all discussing together. I think that encourages him as well. But he is also, he discussed with my daughter, with both of them actually. He's discussed with the oldest one. He discusses with her. If he's reading something, they'll discuss, or they even discuss the Gita together. He does. He whenever he can, he does try. He tries to discuss with them as well. Yeah.
He does work a long day, really long day. Yeah. So should we move on to other things if we have time? I know you don't have a lot of time. Do we have any time?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I just want to ask you about the overall difference that regular Gita and Bhagavatam discussions has made in your life as an individual, and in your life as a family, and for your children. Just the fact that you're discussing regularly, how has that had a, if any, knock-on effect in other areas of your life and your family's life?
Okay, So the
if you feel comfortable
difference,
speaking about
the
that.
difference, the Gita discussions have had.
And the Bhagavatam discussions now, we're doing too, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't really I feel that with my children, they've been born with it, and we've been kind of discussing since the beginning anyway. So that it feels like that's just our life. But with my husband, he's noticed a vast difference in my behaviour and and my attitudes, and just how life is much calmer. Even my daughter's noticed. Like, I was just telling the oldest, but I was just telling Chintamani probably that I had a month where I just couldn't fit in any discussions or do anything. I was like, it was a busy month. I just stopped everything, and I was so jittery. I was like, and snappy. And my husband was like, I can't wait until we get back into Gita discussions. And even my daughter was saying the same thing. It's like, we need to get back into this again, because there's such. And I even felt it as well. I just don't feel happy. And the family know, they see and they realise it as well. And my daughter's the same, actually. She
Oldest or youngest?
The oldest. Mm-hmm. She feels that I think she needs that kind of connection to Krishna regularly as well. So yeah, I think what we felt is we've really felt protected and happier. Emotionally very much more stable, I think that,
I'm really glad you brought in the concept of feeling protected, because for those of you who know me well and possibly have watched the Gita Jayanti class I gave at the Manor, it's on the Improving Our Sadhu Sangha webpage. When we analyze the first two sentences of Prabhupada's 1.1 purport, if we analyze them, we'll see that surrender to Krishna equates to study Bhagavad Gita scrutinizingly with the help of a person who's a devotee of Sri Krishna and try to understand it without personally motivated interpretations. And Krishna promises that if we do this discussions, if we do this study with another devotee, he will protect us in our lives. I know that one of the main reason I'm so enthusiastic about sharing discussions is because I found that Krishna has completely saved me from impossible situations, both internally and externally. And I just wanted to ask you about your experiences. Do you feel that you experience Krishna's protection in your life when you discuss the Gita or the Bhagavatam on a regular basis? And maybe just tell us some incidences or anything, about that, if you like.
How he's when we talked about this, I was like, okay, this I can vouch for sure without feeling a bit nervous or anything. But I have felt that Krishna does protect us, and my daughter, the first daughter, has also felt that Krishna does look after us. He protects us. We've got nothing to worry about, and it's real, and it feels really real. I feel that he protects me from myself in a way, like from just being so. Before discussing the Gita, I'm quite a fiery person. So, this is actually why I approached Chintamani, probably because I was like, is there any way to fix me? Because I'm so fiery. And then, she kept talking about the discussions and, how we just say, oh, okay, yeah, that sounds nice. And then we go home and don't do anything about it. And then, I saw her the next day and she's like, how are you? And I was like, oh yeah, my fiery nature came out again. And then she was like, but are you discussing? And I was like, oh wow, really? It's connected. And so I've actually found that this has kind of protected me. It's protected our marriage, I think. I know it has actually. I think without the discussions, I think it's fair to say we probably would be divorced by now. You know, don't know if that's too much information, but
ditto.
But yeah, and I know my husband can vouch for that and say that the discussions are, you know, very protective of our marriage, and yeah, and there. What else was it? So yeah, protects us. Oh yeah, I was also saying that he provides everything. I really found that, you know, sometimes as mothers we get, you know, we're around our kids all the time, and sometimes it's like, I need some adult company, and then sometimes we try and arrange like meetups and to do stuff with other people, and you know, and but what I found is that when we really take shelter of these discussions regularly, I found that I don't need to actually actively endeavour for this stuff. You know how Krishna just provides everything that you lack or anything that you need? You just worry about finding time to discuss the Gita, and Krishna will send everything you need to you. Honestly, I really feel that 100%, and my daughters felt that 100%, that we just need to take shelter of the Gita. And if at any time we're just feeling like we're feeling low, or just feeling like affected by things that have happened externally, we turn even more to the Gita. We make sure, it's because I haven't been discussing. We get down and discuss the Gita, and everything works out, and it works out better than you know, if better than we could believe, better than if we just tried ourselves to try and sort things out. And so in that way I felt really protected. Yeah, I really and I think this is why I want to discuss with my children and with the family, because my dream and my wish and my hope is that my children can grow up to turn to the Gita and the Bhagavatam as their best friend, as their solace, and you know, whatever they go through in life, because they will go through things in life, we all will and do, and there's ups and downs, but if you constantly stay in touch with the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam, Krishna will protect you. And if my kids are able to do that, I'd be so happy. That's my life success. You know, if they find their solace and their shelter in the Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita.
So nice. Thank you so much for sharing that, Vrinda Kishore. I just want to vouch that my husband, my relationship, we were married for, I forget, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think 13 years. My eldest son was 9, and so I was married. We were married 4 years before we had a child. So that how many years were we married? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 years. And after 13 years of marriage, we were actually going through a really, really rocky patch. We would argue all the time. It was probably mostly my fault, not my husband's fault. But since we began doing the discussions, it's like we don't argue, and you can ask any of my kids. And that's how we came to meet, isn't it? Because my eldest daughter overheard you and your friends talking about the arguments at home, and she said, my parents never argue.
That was so weird.
What? But it was since we began doing the discussions properly, and especially since we began applying the protocols and the principles, you know. Before that, we'd argue all the time. So thank you so much for sharing that. I just, if you've got time, have you got time? Because I know you need to go and pick up your daughter. Okay. So I just want to know 2 questions. One is, you don't have to go into the details, other Gita or Bhagavatam Sanghas before that, and was the experience the same as doing it according to the principles that we share on the Improving Our Sadhu Sangha site, a Facebook page? And the second question following that is, what are the principles that have helped you make your discussions different than your previous experience? So maybe, and which protocols you found easy, which you found hard, which made the biggest impact? So maybe you can just talk a little bit about, first starting with previous sanghas, Gita and Bhagavatam sanghas you've had, and the difference between how you do it now.
Okay, so I think we've all wanted to, we know that we need to attend Sangha groups and discuss these scriptures. And so from a young age, I think about 16, I started trying to go to Sangha groups with other friends, and we'd try to discuss. And two things that I noticed before I started discussing using these protocols and these principles was that we'd read a paragraph and then it kind of stopped there. Like, we'd read the paragraph and then we'd talk, and we talk about anything that we feel like talking about that's somehow related to this, and if it flows off, it flows off, which was nice because we were together and we're having a nice conversation. We were talking about our stuff, but it was talking about our stuff, and it wasn't necessarily sticking to Srila Prabhupada's words. And I think what I struggled with, not struggled, but I just didn't feel any change happening. I think that's I felt the change happening after I used these protocols. And I think what I liked about these principles was that you're sticking to Srila Prabhupada's words. You're not deviating from them. You're really trying to understand what Srila Prabhupada is saying. And then if you've got questions, the answers are not deviating either. The answers are, we're trying to find our lights, or the lights is another word for our answers, which some people don't know. Some people are like, why don't you just say answer?
I just want to say that the reason we don't say answer is because we're not acharyas. So it's not like our answer is, that's the answer. Mm-hmm. It's the best we can do. Prabhupada uses these words, your lights, different perspectives. So it's our attempt to answer, but that doesn't mean that's the answer.
Okay.
It's just my little light, how much I can see into the answer.
Okay, yeah. So it was, so these lights were, they were real lights. They came from Shastra. They came from Srila Prabhupada. They came from the scriptures, from Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I found that, then I felt uplifted after these discussions. But with the previous ones, I felt uplifted and happy because I was with my friends. But there's a vast difference, like the happiness and the fulfillment and the change that you feel using these protocols. Like that, you got to try it. It's amazing. It really is. And I mean, this is how my husband felt, that he wanted to start discussing it as well, because he saw me discussing using this technique, and then he was like, okay, let's stick to this technique. And now it's actually hard for me to go out and do anything else. But yeah, so so there was that. And what was the question?
Okay. What was the difference between the sanghas used to do, and how we do it?
Yeah. So then the other thing was, I found that we did get into debates a lot, and if I'm honest, it was my ego, my false ego, where I'm just trying to, and my pride. I wanted to be right. I wanted my answers to be right. I wanted to be the person that knows the answers, and well, no, I think it's because of this, and well, no, it's because of this, and it's and then we'd be a bit, couldn't even look at each other in the eyes because we'd just been like, oh, and that's not sadhu sangha, right? No. That's not debating isn't really that's not how devotees associate. So there was something missing, and Krishna was really kind actually to introduce me to you. So thank you. Yeah,
he was kind to introduce me to you too. So a couple of things I want to highlight from what you said. One is that the discussions before were more like, I would put, you said going here, there, and everywhere. So I would put mind mapping. Yeah. So they would start with whatever Prabhupada had said, and something would trigger a memory or a point or an idea, and they would just go all over the universe, but wouldn't stick to the point. And since you began sticking to Prabhupada's points, you felt a much greater inner fulfillment. And the second point, that before there would be argumentative debates. So you'd get into ego clashes. And I just put a video on the Improving Our Sadhusanga webpage. You can find it in the group Introduction and Principles. It's the introduction, principles 6 and 7. So 7 is, do not engage in argumentative debate. Don't debate. There can be different lights. So now you can see different lights and you can validate it, but instead of it becoming an ego clash, it becomes something which is actually makes it more relishable.
Really sweet.
Sweet. And that's the key point. Discussions should be sweet. Satam prasangam mama viri samvido bhavanti hitkana rasayanakata. This is Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25. And in the video about Principles 7, there's a quote there from, I think, Teachings of Lord Kapila, where Prabhupada said, this is the key. He says, if we're discussing like academics or politicians or in a kind of combative way, then we're just licking the outside of the honey jar. But the key to get this nice taste is to discuss with devotees. So devotees don't debate. Prabhupada says it's not a matter of a debate club. So it's being able to see. So I'm so glad that your experience kind of like supports the importance of not debating in an argumentative way. What were the protocols, or by the way, what we call protocols on the Improving Our Sadhusanga Facebook page and also on the web page, we call it useful tips. In the very beginning, we called them principles and protocols. But I thought it would be softer. You can use the protocols or not. So just call them useful tips now. But what were the principles or the useful tips that you found easiest to introduce, and were that ones that you maybe in the beginning found a little hard to get adjusted to? Would you like to say anything about that?
Okay. So one of the what did I find easy to do? Okay, let me first talk about what I found hard to do. Not hard, but it's something that we are all kind of accustomed to doing, something that we've learnt right from, childhood. We've learnt at school to show that we're listening, show that you're listening, you can't look away. So I am very good at eye contact and, oh, wow, really? Oh, yeah, pretend listening. And I remember when I was discussing with Chintamani Prabhu earlier, when we first started, and she'd be saying something, I'd be like, oh, okay, oh, and then she'd say, so can you understand me? And I was like, sorry, I wasn't actually listening, because I'm so used to showing that I'm interested and I'm listening, but actually my mind's not really there. I'm still thinking about something else. So to train yourself to really listen, and listen not with the intention to reply, but listen with the intention to understand. I love doing it now, and I did like it, and actually that was also one of my easiest things to do. So I don't know.
It's easy now.
It's easy now.
Hard then.
Yeah, it was hard because you're so used to trying to think of answers but now you don't actually need to worry about thinking of answers, because the person who asked the question has to answer it first. so you can just worry about understanding them. But yeah, I think I didn't struggle with it, but I kept falling back into the bad habits of pretend listening. Yeah.
How about looking for evidence?
Looking for evidence. Oh yeah, that was difficult. So when I first started discussing with Chintamani Prabhu, it was I was like, oh my God, she knows so much. Like she like with all the answers, she could refer to Shastra. She could say, in the Bhagavad Gita, in this text and chapter and text, in this purport, have a look, everyone, and we'd all go and the quote would be there, and she could go to it straight away. And I remember thinking, there is no way, I don't know Shastra that well that I can refer to this and that and this and that. And so I think that was like, that kind of scared me, that, oh my God, we can only give a light if we refer to Shastra. I think that really made me think, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to be able to answer anything or find any lights. But then as you continue to discuss, all of that discussion is sticks with you. So, well, not all of it, some of it just sticks with you. A lot of it does, actually, more than if we just read. And so when in later discussions we can go back and say, you know what, I discussed this in 13:8-12 it says this, or in 9:1 it says this, and and you just jump to it because it's like, I remember discussing this. And another thing, like I was saying before, is that by the Lord's mercy, we have Google. We have Google, and we have Vedabase and Vani quotes, and any question that you have, usually you can like type in a keyword and you get stuff coming up, and that's brilliant. And that I found that really helps as well.
Yeah, instead of just talking and talking and talking when we don't know something, we'll just be quiet for a few moments when everyone's like frantically looking for evidences, one way or the other, and we're not attached whether the evidence goes against us or for what we said. It's just, what does the evidence say, and it's really it's a nice feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not about us anymore.
Yeah.
It's no longer about us.
Yeah.
You kind of feel free,
Sorry, I really like what you just said, so I want you to catch it.
I said it's not about us anymore. It doesn't feel like it's about us anymore. You feel free. There's no like, oh, I need to support my point. It's like, together we're going for an exploration. We're exploring the Shastra. We're exploring what's Krishna saying, what's Srila Prabhupada saying. Oh, you know what? This is what I found. This is what I found. Oh, how can we make sense of this? Where is this from? And then and then we kind of find references to understand our doubts or whatever, and then we can bring it all together. And oh my God, it's so nice. It's like we're on a journey together. We're not against each other. We're not fighting against. It's so nice. It's really nice.
I think one of the key phrases these days is connection. You brought up connection in regard to your younger daughter. How people looking for connection, we often turn to alcohol or illicit sex or gambling or sleeping or whatever, because we lack that connection. But when you explore and you're together on that journey and you're supporting each other, the sense of connection between you is just so uplifting. You feel a real sense of that connection happening, and it's a really amazing feeling.
Yeah. Could I
Please
just
do.
say something about that? I don't know if any of you ever go to like talks where someone says, can you write down, or on your hands, can you figure out the 5 closest friends, or the 3 closest friends, or 2 closest friends, or, and every time I've done that, my closest friends are always, without a doubt, the people that I discuss with. Like, it's on a different level, and they might not be people that I see every day, day in, day out, but they are the ones that I discuss with. And the connection is so much deeper, because Krishna really is in the center. Yes. He really,
You know that verse from the Padma Purana? I'll let you say it if you know it. Naham Tishtami Vaikunte. Okay. There's a really nice verse from the Padma Purana. I only know verses which have really impacted on me and supported and enthused me to keep discussing. I'm not but there's a really nice verse from the Narada Purana, I think, where the Lord says, Naham Tishtami Vaikunte Yoginam Hridaya Shiva Tat Tat Tishtami Narada Yatra Gayanti Mat Bhakta. So it says, I'm not in Vaikuntha, nor am I in the hearts of the yogis, O Narad, but I am wherever my devotees are discussing my glories. And you feel that. You really feel this, just an incredible connection. And I think it's because, as you say, the Lord, if we're discussing in a Vaishnavli way, not combative, not kind of like with ego, but really supporting each other, trying to, not mental speculation, not going off on, flights of fancy and all over the world, but sticking to trying to understand Prabhupada and find evidences and working together cooperatively. Krishna enters into that discussion, and the inner feeling is just absolutely so sweet. So, anything else that you feel you would like to add? Going back to the children, sharing it, any words of encouragement that you'd like to give to other mums or other dads or other families who are considering, maybe their children are boys who find it hard to sit down and do a Gita discussion, anything that you think from your experience you might be able to share to give them some courage, or maybe some useful advice, or anything that you might think may help them?
I mean, I don't have boys, so I don't know, but I think
your youngest is like a boy.
They're both like boys. They're both like boys, yeah. They're both tomboys. But I'd say these principles are, for me, I feel that they're flawless. They just work. They just work with every instance. But what I would say is that also not to worry about what other people are doing, and to, think, oh my gosh, she's discussing with her daughter every day, and their family, they're discussing every day, and oh my God, I'm a terrible mum, or I can't do this, and oh my son doesn't do this, and I'd say not to worry so much, and really have faith in Krishna, keep praying to Krishna, and also for us to, I think, firstly build up on our own discussions, make sure that we discuss and we like discussing, because if we like discussing, the kids feel it and they see it as well. And then also when you do that, you also have that connection with your children. Really try and work on that connection, and discuss with them pictures at first, and then slowly start incorporating words. And then once they see you in discussions, and once they're a little bit older, I guess if they would like to join, not to force them, but if they would like to join, not to always differentiate and think, oh well, your kids, this is an adult's one. I think it would be nice to have that kind of respect for them, and say, would you like to join us as well? And I think that's really helped my oldest daughter, that she feel when we go to the same discussion with Chintamani Prabhu, she feels like she's one of us. It's not that she's just a kid that has to sit on the side or anything like that. But don't force it, don't worry, keep praying to Krishna. And I feel that if we really do, I think if we really have the desire, I feel Krishna will arrange it. I hope so anyway. Let's see.
Thank you so much. So I'd like to finish off. If you're a parent, a mother or a father, and you'd like to introduce your children to the Gita discussions, some things I hope you'll take away from. First of all, you have to do it. You have to love it. Do it with your spouse. Do it with your friends. And as you begin to experience it, you'll have something of value that you feel confident you can share it, that will give value to your children. Secondly, when you come to trying to share it, don't force. If you've got a little boy who doesn't like to look at pictures in a book but likes to play football or something, use the protocols, use the reflective listening, which, have I talk about the football or something else. Just bring in, first of all, the habits of good hearing, the habits of respectful discussion. Would you like to say more? Have I understood you? Just in ordinary family affairs, and let your child see you doing it with friends, with family, and hopefully they'll want to come in and join in. And when they do, plenty of encouragement, no shaming, no forcing, no telling them they have to use the protocols. You just keep doing the protocols. You do the reflective listening, and occasionally you can ask, would you like to understand me? If they say no, let it go. As they mature, if you keep reflecting and modeling it, hopefully they'll, when they're ready, they'll say, yes, I'd like to understand back. And whatever they do, encouragement, validation, that's so good. Thank you so much. That really helped me a lot. Thank you. I was really impressed with how you understood me. So no shaming, no forcing, but come to appreciate it yourself, and try it yourself. If you appreciate it, you can share it with encouragement. So thank you so much, Vrinda, for sharing that with me, and I hope that this will help some other parents. Hare Krishna.